Hello, hello, this is Jeremy Schuback of the Photoshop Expert Series, episode 19, Removing the Impossible. We're going to be putting the finishing touches on this image. So we started with an image that looked like this, and we have gotten to a point where it looks like this, which still isn't perfect. But honestly, the hardest part is over right now. So in this session, I'm going to be building this table back in. I'll need to figure out a way to do that. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm sure I can handle it. I'm going to be fading this in a little bit. I'm going to be getting this edge to exactly where it wants, and I might be increasing this in size a little bit. And then we will be good to go. We'll have a nice before and after to look at that we'll all be kind of proud of. All right, so in order to get this table back, let's just look at this original image right here. We're going to do a couple of things. First and foremost, I'm going to look into the other images that I'd pulled up in a previous session and see if I can use any of those elements. So, for instance, this looks pretty cool. Let's see if I can pull some of these elements in order to bring it into this table. So I'm just going to loosely select this, copy, paste it in, and let's bring it higher in the stacking order. There we go. And now I'm just going to, how do I want to do this? All right, let's do it this way. I'm going to make it so this right here, oh, there's a few ways to do this. First off, I'm going to get the exact angle of the table. So let's look at the original image. And the table, it's circular, but I don't really need to worry about it. It basically is a line that will end up looking like this. All right, that looks pretty good to me. All right, so I'm going to put this layer back on. So this layer that I can't see because it's completely covered up. I'm going to put this layer back on, and I'm going to give it a mask. This will be a new technique, which is kind of fun. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to turn off the auto select layer, just so I know I'm staying on this layer. And I'm also going to unlink the layer from the mask. So I'm going to press this. Now, you remember when I originally introduced masks? Camera back to me. When I originally introduced masks, I showed you how it was basically, you cut it out here. So far, we have always kept the mask and the image together. Image, mask. What we can actually do is we can move the image inside, and the mask will stay in the same place. And the way to do that is by clicking that, they're currently linked together with the link button. It's by unclicking that link button that we can use them separately. All right, switch back. All right, so this button right here, if we hold down this button, then the mask and the layer will always move together. Otherwise, they can move separately. So in this case, we have a mask that looks like this, which is the exact angle of the table, and we have something that we want to kind of put in to be the table. So I'm going to hit Control-T on the layer, not on the mask part of the layer, but on the layer. And I'm going to just kind of bring it down. All we're looking for here is to steal the texture. So one thing about this, it is completely the wrong angle, it is completely the wrong cards, but hopefully I can use it just to grab the texture. And this part of the image is blurry, so it's a little bit forgiving. So I'm just going to kind of stretch that out so it matches the rest of the image. I could add more cards down here. I don't particularly want to because that wasn't in the original image. So I might get rid of those in a little bit. And I'm just kind of squishing and squashing this as needed. But already you can see that this is, starting to work, but only starting. All right, so let's get it so it's more or less a clean part of the table. And that is looking pretty snazzy to me. And now I'm just kind of matching the angle of the cards. And notice again just how blurry the cards are down here as opposed to these, which are crystal clear. We're going to want to match that right there. So I'm going to say OK to that. I'm going to go back into the original image. And I'm going to actually, because this is a mask, I can bring in part of this back. So I have it set on black. That is, well, it's the wrong way, although technically I could just do this. But I don't want to do that. I want to use as much as the original image as possible. So now I'm painting in with white. And I'm just going to paint in this original table. It looks like there's a sheet of paper right here. We could get rid of this sheet of paper, but this is really only about getting rid of the bag. So I'll just leave that sheet of paper right there. And I'm just hitting the X key to make sure we're getting rid of this bag down here while not going into the cards down there. This should be clear. We've talked about masks a lot. I'm just hitting X to switch between the the white and the black. And again, that's nothing we haven't talked about. If this is your first video in the Photoshop Expert Series, come on, watch the others. They're really good. And if this is your 18th video in the Photoshop Expert Series, thanks for sticking with me. There's a lot of good stuff to come. I need to stop self-promoting myself. This is getting ridiculous. All right, so now I just selected the layer that I wanted to go on, and I'm just going to only make it the table texture. So there we go. And again, remember that I had deselected auto select layer. That's going to prevent us from running into a lot of problems. And I had also unlinked the layer from the mask part of it. All right, so that's actually starting to look very close to what I want it to look like. All right, there's a little bit of a hitch right there, so I'm just going to loosely go in with my brush tool and brush that away. So again, the way that I did that is I have a layer that looks like this, and I just brush that away inside of its mask. So I just, it's important to be clear of what's accomplishing what when you're doing this, because you want to be able to get it exactly how you want. All right, so let's just look up here. I am liking this edge. It looks a little weird right here, but nothing that isn't solvable. As it is, though, I'm actually rather happy with this. This is a little bit too clear, and then this edge over here, there's a couple of problems that we're dealing with. So let's do the most obvious first. I'm going to switch back to auto select layers, and I'm going to click here. Now, something to note: if you have auto select layers on, and you have a layer that's disconnected from the mask, you are not going to actually be able to select other layers. I'm going to undo that. It will always select the mask. So if you click back on the layer with auto select layer, then you will be able to select anything. So I have a mask on this. I'm just going to use the brush tool. I'm going to increase its size, decrease its hardness, and just kind of swipe across just to get an edge right here. I don't want that showing up because that is what we are trying to get rid of. And that looks pretty good to me. I wouldn't necessarily know there was anything fake going on. There might be a problem right here. Yeah, that's fake right here. So let's get rid of it right there. Again, I don't want to ever see any hard edges. I want everything to just kind of flow. All right, so we're having trouble down here with not losing the mask. So I'm going to use the stamp tool. I'm going to just do it on the next layer. Just created a new layer, and I'm just going to use the stamp tool to get rid of this. There we go. Looks pretty good. If I wanted to right now, I could go in and really get those edges exactly how I want, again with the stamp tool. All right, so the problem that I'm having right now is this edge right here is looking weird, and this edge right here is looking weird. So let's go to this layer. I'm going to go to its mask, and I'm going to hit B to go to brush, decrease the size. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to start making it so these edges work. Let's see how those edges work. It looks like this is how edges are supposed to work. So I'm going to use that as my template for the other ones over here. So I'm just going to, kind of go into them. I'm pretty happy with this. Maybe I don't want to have quite a hardness, so maybe I'll make this hardness only part of the way. And that will make it so it's kind of a little bit more defined right there, making sure that I match the angle. I mean, at this point, we really are basically painting. One thing that I'm noticing with this, notice that I'm just hitting X to go in between the two of them. One thing that I am noticing with this is the color. The color between this pole and here is fine. I wouldn't notice that, but this pole and here, it's way too sharp. I feel like I wouldn't believe that the white would go from something so white to something so brown, and that's just because there's always going to be a fall off of color spill on anything you create. So again, like right here, I believe it, but in that other area, I don't necessarily believe it. And I'm paying attention to kind of a little of the perspective. You see the angle that I built on right there. I'm not even sure if that's right, but for now, I will say that's pretty good. So right here, what's going on? This is a problem. But before I even do that, I'm just going to go into this area right here, and I'm going to increase the softness of the edge, decrease the hardness of the edge, increase the size of the brush, press X to switch it. Notice how I'm never going into tools, I'm never going into my color picker, because you know what? That takes too long. It just straight up takes too long. All right, so in this area right here, in order to get this so it fades from here to here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. You'll notice I just kind of willy-nilly create new layers. And I'm going to use the stamp tool down here, just kind of to get a color. Then what I'm going to do, let's see if this will work. Okay, that would not work. Okay, then what I'm going to do, I just tried to see if it was worth it to introduce clipping masks. It's not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a mask on this just so I can go back and forth. I was going to just use the eraser, but that's not enough. And I'm just going to, let's see, I'm just going to hit X to get this exactly where I want. There we go. And you can see how this is the exact color that we want right here. There we go. I'm going to press V. And then because I have the move tool selected, I can hit the number 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. Let's do 8 is too little. 9 is 90% opacity. That's getting to be closer. Let's do 85. So you'll notice when I press 85 in quick succession, it doesn't do 80% and then 50%. It actually does 85%. So I'm just affecting the layer opacity right there. And then I'm going to go back to my brush tool. I'm going to increase the size of it. I'm going to make sure it has a very soft edge. And I'm just going to drag and cross to get a nice little fade. So again, what happened right there is I just dragged across to get a nice little fade. I'm getting that the gradient we get in this area right here is what I was shooting for. So if we look at that, again, just large brush, drag it across. Sometimes what I'll do here is I'll actually set up multiple masks by creating a layer. A layer group and putting this inside of the layer group and putting a mask on the layer group. But I feel like that's overkill in this case. All right, so, but if you do need multiple masks, realize that is absolutely possible. All right, again, I'm not really completely buying this one right here. This is cool. This is cool. This one I'm not buying. It could be an angle thing. So I am going to go in here. Where is my move tool? There we go. Move tool is where it always is, right underneath the keyboard shortcut V. And I'm going to go into my brush, and I am going to, hitting X, I'm hitting X, nothing's happening. It looks as if I am on the wrong layer. These things happen. All right, this is the layer I want to be on. I'm going to deselect the layer mask. And it looks like even if I bring this down, I'm not able to take it that much further. Perhaps I have a layer covering it up. Well, I have this layer covering it up. That's not going to do too much. Here we go. I want to be on this layer. There we go. So when you get to have a bunch of layer masks, it gets to be a little bit confusing. So, you know, don't make it too confusing. When you start to need to figure out which layer you need to affect, it's time to simplify. It's time to say, all right, what can I commit to changes? I'm going to save out a new edition of this document. And I am just going to commit these changes, all of that. And I know that this layer mask is good, or you need to start labeling the layers, because you'll notice that my things are layer 2, layer 3, layer 7. They're completely unnamed, so then when you right-click with the Move tool, you're able to say, oh, the pole layer, that's what I want to affect. And that's actually what I name my layers for. It's just so when I right-click, I'm able to see, because I'm rarely actually going into the layer palette, unless there's a problem with the stacking order. All right, let's affect this. Let's bring this down a little bit. And again, I could probably go a lot further on this. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to use the stamp tool, and I'm just going to decrease its size, and just going to stamp over like this. I'm going to stamp over like this. I'm going to do bring down the opacity, and then I'm going to go into the eraser tool. I'm just going to use an eraser rather than a mask, because I was just talking about how we have too many things right here. And the difference between this and this, incredibly subtle. Here, let me zoom in just so I don't know how clear the YouTube video is going to be. Incredibly subtle, but there's a difference, and I actually like it much more like that. Would I look at that twice? I might. It's still not completely there. This isn't working. I really don't think this is working right here. We're 14 minutes in. I gotta stop this tutorial. If this is good enough for you, great. I'm gonna go in and make it just a little bit tighter in the next video. This has been Jeremy Schuback with the Photoshop Expert Series. Click subscribe, tell your friends, add a comment. I love you all. Until next time.